I do. I think that when you there's going to be ebbs and flows in terms of kind of optimism and skepticism. The Liberation Day back in April, optimism where we're at now. But if you step back and look at the broader trend over the next 3 years, let's say, I think that this is going to continue to be a bull market. I think it's going to go materially higher, and ultimately, I think it's going to end in a bursting of a bubble. And the reason why I mentioned that kind of that rough edge of kind of how this plays out is that if I'm right about what the next 3 years look like, and we get just across the board optimism, I mean, levels that I think are hard to kind of comprehend, I think that ultimately there probably is some sort of bubble bursting. But Tom, to answer your question, I think that we're very optimistic. Deepwater, we are about 70% of our investments are AI related. Wow. And I sleep well at night.
Gene, you said you were maybe a little bit cautious on Microsoft. I looked at the A&R function for Microsoft, 65 buys, 7 holds, 0 sells. What's your current view of Microsoft here?
You just have better places to invest, and they've steady revenue. There is a lot of that predictability, which is attractive. I just maybe to give some context to why the stock is working, that piece is attractive. And second is Microsoft has probably been the most forward-thinking company when it comes to using AI to save costs. They've talked about this $500 million in annual savings just in terms of coding, moving that over to the machine. And so I think that investors are expecting some margin expansion. So I think that that's the reason why it's moving up. But the reason why I'm just think there are better places to be is that ultimately the upside to the numbers, if you look at across the rest of the Mag 7, I think there's just more upside to Microsoft, for example, is not going to grow at 20%. It might grow at 14.5%. Whereas you have a company like Apple. Surprisingly, the street's looking for mid-single-digit growth next year, and you could see 8% growth.
Gene, I was in the acclaimed Bloomberg food court the other day looking at the Red Sox box scores. I don't know if you're aware, Gene, but the Red Sox have won 10 in a row. And one of our fancy artificial intelligence people walked up to me and said, Tom, you need a brief. So I got briefed. Do you parse a difference between ChatGPT, Google Gemini, help me here, Anthropic, Perplexity is something? Are these all equal things, Gene Munster? Or for our listeners and viewers, do we need to learn nuances of them?
Well, the answer is it's nuance, and this is something we're actually working on a bigger project right now. We're going through and testing these different models. And there's like broadly accepted testing, benchmarking, like Chatbot Arena, for example, which is widely recognized. But there's a lot of gamification in terms of how the companies go up against those benchmarks. And then there's just the coding side, how well does it code? And then there's just like the real world, like does it give you the answer you're looking for? And it turns out that each of these models, with the exception of Llama is pretty weak. And so, but if you look at the other 4 primary models, they all have kind of different strengths. And so ultimately is that think of AI as more of like a personality, is that the world isn't going to be centered on one personality. We wouldn't want that. And so each of these models has a slightly different personality and slightly different strengths. And so that's what we are seeing is if you're going to say what's like the best model, kind of putting everything all together, it's probably OpenAI, GPT today, and then Grok and Gemini kind of close behind.
So, Gene, today the news is on the chip side. The U.S. government says, I don't know, Nvidia, AMD, they can start sending some of these advanced AI chips to China. What's the backstory there? What stocks are trading up on this news?
Well, it's big news, obviously, for Nvidia, and they talked 3 months ago about this impact being a negative 15% to the overall growth. So if you think about the street numbers, maybe just to Paul to kind of zero in on what's going on with Nvidia, is company 3 months ago says we can't sell these H20s to China, and that's going to cost us 15% of our revenue. The reason why that the street numbers are not going to go up by 15% today is twofold. Number one is the 40 analysts that cover Nvidia. About 8 of them had anticipated that these curbs be released in this current quarter. And so you saw some of the analysts already expecting this announcement. And then separately is that this is good news. It's good news for Nvidia. But like the whole geopolitical conversation around how chips play into rare minerals and all that, that hasn't been solved. And if one thing we've learned over the last 3 months is that you really can't take one development in a day and extrapolate it over the next couple of years.
Right.
And so that's why the stock's up 5% today, not 15%.